Hello, welcome back to the Trekway. He's Mr. Grey. I'm Trev. Live long and prosper, my friends. Well, that's the ending, isn't it? We
We're done. Yay.
wait, bye. Sorry we're a tad late, just personal stuff going on in our lives, but we always try and get out there at least by the weekend if we're not bang on the Thursday. But we do try for the Thursday. It's not always possible. Today will be Strange New Worlds Season 2, Episode 5, titled Charades.
Just to interrupt for a second.
Yeah.
When you bang the desk, the mic's picking up on it.
Let's not bang the desk then. Let's not bang the
Yes,
desk.
do not bang the desk.
We were having audio problems, which we'll need to look into in more detail after this, I think. But yeah, so apologies if the audio standard's not up to the usual. Yeah, we'll get the boring stuff out the way. You don't have to like the video. You don't have to subscribe. You don't have to do any of that. Just leave a comment below and tell us, what do you like about these formats of videos? What do you dislike about these kind of videos? Just tell us, because I'm curious. Just let me know.
And if your buttons happens to slip and you hit subscribe, that's okay too.
True, this is true. This is very true as well. Of course, you can find us on the podcast side of things as well, wherever you get podcasts, under the Trekway, and also Twitter under the Trekway as well. My man here, Mr. Grey, we're taking a small hiatus due to what's happening in Hollywood and personal stuff going on in our lives. But we will be back with Gray's show at some point in the near future, Gray's Green Room, and that's entertainment, banter and nonsense and news and whatever you like. And he's under Gray's Green Room for the YouTubes and wherever you get your podcasts from, and also on the Twitters as well, at Gray's Green Room. And then lastly, don't forget our friend Nick. We do a gaming podcast with him if you like gaming. I have talked about the Star Trek game, but the Star Trek Resurgence it's called. There's another one coming out soon, so we do talk about that on there, and that's at Extreme PC UK. Again, YouTube, podcasts, and Discord as well. You search for Discord Extreme PC UK. Gray and I, what's Gray's room? He pays for it. I've got a Discord room where we actually talk about entertainment, Star Trek, and all that kind of stuff. Join us, please.
Join the Discord. Yeah, we talk about all kinds of entertainment.
Any Star Trek news is good news. But yeah, thank you. Now we'll get that out of the way. This was, I know last week was better than the week before, Gray. It was like a decent improvement. Yep. But this week now, safe to say that this is, well, I won't give away your score, but you've in my eyes, reading your score and your comments, it's the best episode of the season so far.
Yeah, it is so far, I think.
Okay.
I just think it had the whole package. Everything was just kind of cooking on all cylinders with it, so that was good.
Fire on all cylinders. It's not cooking on all cylinders, man.
Yeah, whatever, something like that. If you drop an egg on a cylinder, if it's hot enough, it'll cook it.
Okay.
Nobody would do that, but
But yeah, so this was it's a better episode purely because we've got over 2.5 pages worth of notes, which we don't normally have. So that's just because there was more to talk about. I found myself typing up more stuff actually. So this was the episode we saw in the teaser trailer for the season where Spock had human ears, right? This is where this episode's going. The Enterprise is en route to survey a moon around Vulcan because there's I don't know if it's because of or as well as there's an anomaly around one of the moons that they want to investigate more. So they're going to go and check that out, but they're pulling double duty. Spock has got I don't know, it's like, is it a pre-marriage ritual they need to do? How would you name that?
It sounds like it. I mean, it's something that has to be done before
party.
you actually. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Engagement party, yeah, which makes sense. Bear in mind, he hasn't seen his wife fiance, to prime for ages, so it gets a little bit interesting later on. But yeah, so they're pulling double duty. In fact, triple duty. Really, actually, there's kind of like 3 stories in this. You usually get your A plot, your B plot, and sometimes you get a C plot. We get a C plot here as well. Also, Nurse Chapel as well is applying for a fellowship with Vulcan Science Academy, with the Vulcan Science Academy, a 2-month fellowship. and she's having to study for it, and you hear her asking questions, or crewmates are asking her questions about various things to keep her on her toes, and she seems to know her stuff. So, and I missed this point, Greg. You noted this down. They're doing kind of random stuff. I like this when they open the episode with like weird stuff going on. Spock is learning to cook and appreciate food and stuff more, as well as seeing his missus again. And you and you noted here that I forgot Spock has to use nasal suppressants because humans stink. Now I missed that comment. Is that a thing with male?
Well, I mean, I said stink just because, well, that's what they were saying. I mean, Spock was commenting that he said that Vulcans have had to do the nasal suppressants when they're around humans because he says there's an odor about, and so that means we stink somehow. And it was funny because Pike was doing the cooking. Of course, he was getting a little upset because he couldn't smell the herbs. He's going like, these are some really fresh herbs and everything here. And he puts it up to Spock's nose, and he's going like, like I don't smell anything.
Really, nothing.
And he's just going like it, and he's going like, what? Are you kidding? It's like,
so
all right, whatever.
Vulcans want to suppress their sense of smell because it must be they've got a very strong sense of smell. Then clearly, obviously, and the smell
must be like a bloodhound.
Yeah, I mean, as we find out later on as well, female Vulcans have an even stronger sense of smell as well. So it makes sense. Everything must be overwhelming to them, and us humans are stinky. So
which is actually true of humans, us too. Women can smell certain things that guys can't.
Really?
Did you just make you look it up.
What bullshit? Is that
you look? No, I'm pretty sure if you check that, you'll see that they're a little more sensitive. Not like a dog would be, but a little more sensitive than us.
Huh. There you go. Hey, don't say you don't learn something on this podcast, people. So it was funny at start.
That's like all those other funny things about. You ever do the thing where you pick up a chair with your head against the wall, and only women can do it, and men can't? Never heard this? It's pretty funny. If you were to be facing a wall, right, and you bend over at your waist and put the top of your head against the wall, so you're looking like an L shape, right? Okay. And below you have a chair, not a heavy chair, just a chair. You pick the chair up, and then straighten up your back. In other words, just pick up the chair, pick up the chair, and then just straighten right up. You can't do it. But a woman can do it every time. And there's a scientific reason for it.
They've got one less rib or something like that. That's what it is, I think. No, they do.
That's
one less rib.
No, I understand that, but that's not it. It's because a woman's center of gravity is up here, where a man's center of gravity is down here.
Oh, insert jokes there, Gray. Which we won't do.
Yes, I know.
Family show.
And when I first saw this, it was on a TV show, like way back in the 1970s, and I'm sitting there going like, nah, that's a bunch of crap. So I sat there with my, I don't know who it was. I think it was my sister or my mom or something. We tried it, and I'm like, damn. I'm sitting there picking the chair up thinking like, no problem. I'll just straighten right up. Can't freaking do it. And my wife just does it and goes, whoop, no problem. I'm like, that's crazy.
Interesting. That is interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think I don't know if I got the center of gravity part right, but the point is it is the center of gravity. It's different on a woman than a man. That's why they can do it.
Huh.
So everybody out there that's listening to this, if you want to do a good party trick, remember this. And because it'll be pretty, especially after a couple drinks, you'll be sitting there going like, I could do it. That's somebody like $20 and he won't be able to do it.
You have learned something today, people, as have I. And who didn't say you didn't get education on this podcast?
Right.
That's a massive divergent, but it's a funny one nevertheless. So focus. There we go. So yeah, amusing start to both the episode and a review of the episode. I think there is a little awkward scene in the turbo lift with Spock and Chapel because they're avoiding one another, or more so, Spock's avoiding Chapel. Right. And Poor and Benga's in the middle of this. They basically barely say a word to one another and leave. And it gets better because Chapel and Spock have to share a shuttle to Vulcan, to the Science Academy. Because Spock's going to go down there for his ceremony, and Chapel's going to go down there and do our fellowship thing, or our interview for the fellowship. I'm just thinking of Lord of the Rings when I say that, mate. Sorry. They then, though, fortunately, they see this anomaly that they picked up before, and they go to investigate it a little bit more. Got a little bit close though, and they start getting sucked into the little thing, to the anomaly a little bit, and it just looks a little kind of wormhole type portal thing in space. And I'm thinking, oh, not the portal gun again, but that was a different show. So, and then it then just kind of fades to black grey, doesn't it? And then Spock just wakes up in sickbay. And what you tell us what happens after this, what he realizes and what he says.
Well, the funny thing is he's looking up and all he sees is Captain Pike and Benga and Nurse Chapel, and they're all looking at him like, and he's going like, "What? How do you feel?" And he goes, "I feel strange. I don't." And he's looking at his hands and everything, and they're just going like, and they're trying to tell him delicately what's been going on or what's happened. And so they start to tell him that the aliens pulled all his Vulcan DNA out, and now he's totally human. So he gets up, and all of a sudden you hear the bleep come in, but he goes, "What the fuck?" Beep. That was great, and it was just like, uh-oh.
I was wondering.
No pointed ears, of course. It's like they're looking at the real Ethan Peck, more or less.
I'm surprised that we actually didn't hear him swearing, because it's not a thing in Star Trek, but they have put a couple of swear words in, like Discovery and Picard and stuff. So, and I don't like that. Listen, if he'd sworn, I wouldn't have liked that. I'm glad they cut it off. I don't want to hear that in Star Trek, personally.
Well, it's funny because the original Trek, as well as Next Generation, when Roddenberry was alive, he originally said there will be no swearing.
Good.
And they did. And they didn't. Yep.
Oh, there we go.
I mean, you can come close by saying different things creatively, of course, which they did. But they never swear. Swearing came in, I think, with Discovery. I don't believe they sweared in, for the most part, in Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, all those.
Well, they didn't.
It just didn't. It just didn't happen.
Well, then you've got your man Ronald D. Moore, who came from TNG and Deep Space Nine and Voyager and whatnot. Mm-hmm. He wrote on that quite a lot and He produced a lot of the Battlestar Galactica modern version and Outlander as well. Mm-hmm. And I watched a reunion of Battlestar Galactica of them all coming back, the newer version, and they talked about they used the word fracking instead of the normal
exactly.
word, right? And he said, he said, I wanted to get away with bloody murder. I wanted to be able to curse and swear like a trooper and get away with it. So I changed it to frack this, frack that, frack off. And I was just really funny to hear that, and it's just a nice way of spinning it round, because there's different ways of swearing, and that's just, and they do say that in the original series of Battlestar Galactica, frack off. Frack is a word, they don't use it as nowhere near as much as they do in the modern Battlestar. But anyway, sorry, we're off the tangent, but that's what we do. So yeah,
today is the review of the tangents. No,
it's coming soon. Yeah, so it was a little F-bomb from Spock, which is kind of hilarious, and it makes sense because he's now human. Spock, without pointy ears, still being Vulcan, wouldn't swear, but being human, oh yeah, he's going to swear. So there is life forms in this anomaly thing, right? And Gray thankfully changed my spelling, because I didn't pick up what the spelling was. I thought it was like Kirchhoffs, and I was like, what, are they taking the piss? Is this like a species of Kirks or something? What is it? Doesn't
say James T. Kirchhoffs.
Kirchhoffs, not Kirchhoffs.
Kirchhoffs, yes.
Yeah. Just, have you heard of them before, Gray, this species?
No, new species, never heard of them.
So how did you know the spelling? Did you put on subtitles? You did, didn't
no,
you?
I looked it up. I'm not stupid. I mean, I wasn't quite sure myself, so I said, let me go look it up and see what we got. So,
right. Good man. So, yeah, the anomaly before, we'll come to in a second here, because there are aliens in it. It's not just a normal anomaly, to be fair. They control it, and they actually end up speaking to the aliens. Turns out it's a transport tunnel actually for them. I'm thinking something equivalent to like a transwarp conduit for them, you know. They actually, turns out they'd left a calling card behind in the shuttle, because they went on to the shuttlecraft to investigate it, as you do, and it just looked brand new, like it'd been through a spring clean, Grey, which was a bit weird. But there's one thing left on the seat, a calling card that seemed to be some kind of communication type device.
You know, if you think about it, what's really funny about that is that when you usually hire maids, right? And maids come into your house, they clean up, and they will leave a card.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going like, okay, yeah, all right. So there's little subtle humor drops here and there.
That's a good analogy. I like that. Yes. So the maids have been round. The futuristic, super intelligent, advanced aliens that are now maids have cleaned your shuttle and left you some chocolates in a pillow. Very nice.
Yeah. Should have done that too. That would have been great. Pick up the calling card. And there's some mints right there.
Why not?
Of course.
They would have done that if it was Lord X, because it's obviously a funnier show,
Of course.
Lord X.
Yeah.
So yeah, they leave a calling card in the shuttle. Pike asks Ahura to use a calling card to contact aliens, and it works. It's the same kind of effect as anomaly, kind of swoosh, like Stargate. Think Stargate a little bit with when the thing.
They look like they're little miniature wormholes or something. I don't know.
Yeah, kind of like that. So, turns out they repaired the shuttle. They fixed everything, including Spock, because they couldn't figure out that he's got two sets of DNA in him. What's going on? That's not right. And you know, we've both mentioned this, right? They're speaking to an alien called Yellow, which Pike finds amusing. I had to go back and listen to that a bit again, Gray, because I thought they were calling him Yellow because gold can be interpreted as yellow to some people, depending how you look at it. But no, the alien's called Yellow, and we find out there's another one called Blue as well. So you're going to run out of colours eventually, aren't you?
And it's actually another backhanded kind of funny thing, because in most of the shows, you always got to come up with these oddball names of whoever the alien is that you can't even pronounce, right? And they just go, I'm Yellow. Like, okay.
So what do you do when you get through all the colours then?
Yeah, exactly.
Light,
of course, now we know the
dark blue. Or...
We know that the aliens are probably choosing this name because they figure we understand it better for some reason. So whatever, one's yellow.
This is true, because you find out they're super advanced. Like think of the ancients from Stargate. Like they've evolved into like higher beings. You know, that's the vibe I was getting from them. So interesting. Gray notes this down, and I'm thinking the exact same thing. They do hang up. The aliens do hang up on him when Pike tries to explain what's going on, and he doesn't seem too happy. They can't get a call back through again. The calling card's kaput, no longer works. And we both mentioned, Gray, it's interesting that advanced aliens never seen mixed species before.
I would think that would be natural, but apparently to them, I guess it's not. You know, or they haven't talked to any species in centuries.
I think that's part of it, yeah.
Yeah, because they don't know, they don't look at time like we look at time.
Yeah.
So it could have been centuries before somebody came along and, happened to talk or whatever.
True.
But it was kind of logical when you think about it, though, because they said the aliens examined the two of them and saw one was completely human, but one was only half human. So they automatically assumed that the other half was something wrong that happened to Spock. So they go, we have to make them both, alike. And of course, they just did it because it was logical to them.
Logic, I see what you've done there. Yeah,
Yeah, I know. I had to throw that in there.
So yeah, it was a little bit strange, but of course, without that, there wouldn't be a story. But it's the thing to pick up on.
Of course.
Good enough writers can find a way around that, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Spock now, does human things now because he is human, essentially. Which this bit is just, this whole section is amusing. He's trying to learn humour around the officers' bar. Everyone's laughing, and he is not laughing at the start. Later on, he starts laughing like too much, like convulsions. But at the start, he's a bit confused. But he starts getting there slowly but surely. He's enjoying food now because he sense the smell is more normal. Like eating everything, he's loving the food that Pike's cooking. Remember that? He's like, what is that lovely smell? It's bacon, and he's.
And it figures, right? And he's stuffing all this down his throat, like
and he's
going like, why? I think it was Pike. He said, "You might want to go easy with that." And he's going like, "Why?
Why? Hey, too right? Why?"
And then, but even funnier though is as he kept on stuffing himself with bacon, he goes, "Why do I feel nauseous?"
He doesn't know anything.
That was great. Yeah.
And also, you know, he does have a word with Laan at one point. You know, like she's basically saying you just sound like a teenager. You're going through all these emotions and stuff, including hunger and feelings. And he says he basically is like, yeah, I've got feelings at the moment here, and she's like, okay, it's obviously
And
towards her, but she's female. She's like, I'm out of here.
and you see Spock doing one of these. He's kind of doing the up and down look on her, and then she's just going like, "Oh Jesus!"
He was checking He was checking the hull out for hull damage. That's what he was doing.
That's what it was. Yeah, looking for the rivets missing. Yep.
Nice warp nacelles. Yeah, and then another thing, he's obviously he's getting emotions left, right, and center, up and down, and he slowly but surely gets pissed off with Sam Kirk. Sam Kirk's back, Kirk's brother, older brother, and it's nice to see him back actually. And they're sitting around the table, and this happens over several scenes. And this is what I didn't get. The only person that had anything on the table was Sam Kirk. He's obviously had something to eat in a small plate, which he's eaten, and he's left it on the plate, and he's had a cup here with a drink, right? There wasn't a mess anywhere. I think Spock was like, could you remove that, clean up the mess?
No. Here's what happened.
He wanted them removed, didn't he, rather than anything?
Yes, but what happened was on the first scene, if you notice, he had you see the cup, and you see like a wrapper or whatever that was.
Yeah.
But then you see a whole bunch of crumbs on the table all around the cup. And so he started focusing in on the crumbs. And then they do the next scene, and the crumbs are there again, and he's like starting to get, ADHD basically, right?
Yeah,
And then the third time, when you see the crumbs, he screams at him, "Clean up your station!"
He went nuts. He went proper nuts.
Yeah, he went crazy because
he's getting held back and everything by his crewmates.
Yeah.
Like...
And I was cracking up because that's like ultra ADHD. Like I can't have nothing can be out of place.
I thought that was OCD. Was that the same
OCD?
thing?
Whatever, one of those things. Sorry about that. If I mispronounce, I apologize. But yeah, it was just like, and he just went nuts, and I'm like, this is funny, man.
Sam's like, all right, yeah, I'll clean it up, man. No problem.
He's like starting to back off, and he's taking it like this. Sam Kirk, like, oh, okay, all right. No problem.
That was amusing. But
yeah.
It makes sense. It really makes sense. Someone that's never really experienced emotions like that before. Moving on, Chapel's interview doesn't go too well. She has a call with the guy, one of the guys at the Vulcan Science Institute, and he's a bit of a arsehole. Like, he really is. Even the Vulcan standards, he is a bit of an a-hole. And I note later on, but I'm going to talk about it at the moment, the robe, the outfit this guy's wearing, he looks like something out of Dune, the movie. He looks like one of the, I can't remember the Arakoids or whatever they're called.
Or maybe Willy Wonka.
He has that as well. Yeah, he has a suit that goes all the way up and it covers up like half of his chin and it's uneven and my OCD is going nuts. The guy's just not a nice character, man. And it's so short. He basically looks over her applications, not happy, and she says, listen, I've seen things, I've been there, my experience counts. He's not too interested. He says, I'll have a look at it, and then like a minute, it's gone. And I'm like, what a jackass. Poor Chapel, man. Didn't deserve that. And I think part of the reason for that, what did you say, mate?
I said, but later he gets them back. You'll see.
Oh, he does. It's beautiful. That's what gives us such high scores for this episode. Yeah, I think part of the reason that also failed, Chapel was slightly late for that interview, and she might have not been firing on full cylinders because she was up all night trying to find a cure for Spock. And I'm thinking, I'm hesitant this whole time, Gray. I'm like, there's no way they'll find a cure for that. Like that, you can't science your way out of this. It's been done by a higher form of intelligence. That's not,
of course,
not been done by our standards, So it was interesting. There was a funny line from Spock when he was talking to Laan before. I mentioned that. He says, "Oh no, he said it to Chapel, doesn't he?
I think
Chapel's down. Chapel's upset. Spock comes up to comfort her, if you remember that. Right. And he gives her a hug and stuff as well, which was nice. But he said, yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, sometimes I don't cry in the shower. But he said he's joking. I don't know I think he's actually being genuine. I
like how all of a sudden he wants her to feel better, and then he goes in for a hug. But the way he does it was hilarious. He just puts his arms out like this. and stands there. And and then he goes in to hug her, and she's like, okay.
And then a little tap on the shoulder after, like, I'm only joking.
Yeah, it's like, hey, bud. Yeah.
It was amusing. It was amusing. So,
See now, here's what I would have done though, that I thought would have been a wee bit funnier when he did the shoulder like everybody does. Hey, bud, taps you on the shoulder, right? What they should have done in the scene when they're in the lounge, he did the same thing to I think Una or whatever. He taps her on the shoulder. Hey, bud, right? But a Vulcan is a hell of a lot stronger than a human. Oh no, he turned into a human. Darn it.
yeah, so he's,
my whole theory got blown out the window.
Yeah,
but I was imagining he was going to go like this and they go flying.
See, when he was held back by the two crewmen, when he was going to go and basically lamp Kirk, he would have, those two crewmen would have struggled a lot more.
Yeah.
So
he would have thrown against the wall.
But yeah,
my bad.
I like your possible theory though until the human thing.
Yeah, until it fell apart.
Now Spock's mother's back. Same.
Hey.
Amanda Grayson is her character name. Mia Krishna, I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
That's the actress that plays her, and she was from Discovery, the same woman from Discovery. Bear in mind, Spock's mum's human, remember? Yeah. So she was looking really good in that dress. I thought, great, personally. And it was nice to see the same actress back. It really was.
She does a good job.
She done a really good job. Now, at this stage, we won't see Sarek because it's moved into that stage where he's not speaking to Spock because of... It's a whole story. It's a whole different story from another podcast. Why those two? It's canon, though. He shouldn't really be appearing again. He appeared in Discovery before the Fallout. The Fallout lasts... In fact, the Fallout lasts until TNG, if I'm right in saying so.
No, the Fallout lasts into TOS.
Oh, they do speak in TOS then?
TOS, and then there was an episode, I don't remember the name of the episode, where Amanda and Sarek had to come onto the Enterprise, and this was the first time he had talked to his father in years.
Right, there we go.
And Amanda was the one that was, when this happened, Amanda got into it and says, look, you guys have basically been pretty stupid. You should be talking to each other. So the whole episode finally ends up father and son reconciling, and it shouldn't have been that long. But yeah, so that fits in the canon thing.
Good. Don't break canon, people, please. I would appreciate that. She comes aboard, and Spock does rock up with a beanie hat on. And I'm just like, what?
And it's got the Starfleet thing on it on the top. Got the Starfleet thing pinned on the hat.
Gray does mention here, though, that I do remember this as well. He does wear a similar kind of hat, minus the logo, in the city on the edge of forever, the TOS episode. Which
the original series.
That one was brilliant. I love that episode. That's the one where they're trying to change destiny, and the woman that gets knocked down the middle of the road, and Kirk falls in love again.
And the first time we meet Guardian of Forever.
He's brilliant. He's brilliant.
I gotta believe that the beanie cap they used in this episode definitely goes back to City on the Edge. I'm sure of it.
It's the same one.
Same black cap and everything. So I'm just like, little throwback on that one.
Yeah. I like little Easter eggs like that.
The insignia being pinned on it. I was like cracking up, man. I was sitting there going like,
you quite represent, mate.
It was almost like they bought it in the gift shop just outside, right? Everything.
You get logos and everything these days. That's accurate. Keep the logo on, mate.
Yeah.
He is not telling her what's going on. Basically, Spock's not saying anything. He's just like, it's regulation, isn't it, Captain? And he's like, yeah,
sure,
whatever you say.
And I'll tell you, Ensign Mount is great. He's playing the second banana perfectly. He's just sitting there going like, oh yeah, I mean,
the awkward friend, man, you know. It doesn't last long, right? Because bear in mind, Amanda's not only Spock's mother, she's human. She's very switched on, and she knows her stuff. She can smell a bullshitter a mile away. And Spock basically eventually loses his cool because he's trying to delay the ceremony, and it turns out the ceremony's moving to Enterprise now, and there's no excuse, and he just loses his rag. And she's just like, I almost expect her to say when you're in trouble, your mother would call you by your Sunday name, like your full title.
Yeah, your middle name and everything, right? Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, you're in trouble. I thought she was going to do that. But he loses the rag, and she doesn't even say what's up. She just says, Spock, take off your hat.
Yeah.
She's
He's like,
level intelligence above everyone else, man.
and then you would have thought he would have fought it, but it's a typical mother thing. Oh my God, my mom said I got to do it now.
But here, Gray, the thing about the face spasms before, you noticed that before because he's trying to hold his anger, isn't he?
Yeah. He's like, he's making these faces and stuff, and he's going like, "Excuse me, with the accident, I'm having these facial spasm things." I'm like, "Yeah, sure."
I have to go, man. That was amusing. It was amusing. See, is that humor done the right way is unlike when Discovery, when they just had humor for the sake of it, and it wasn't funny half the time.
Yeah, forced humor.
Forced humor, yeah, exactly, mate. So there's only one thing for it. This ceremony has to go ahead because T'Pring, his fiance, does not want. No, not T'Pring. This is the other thing I was going to bring up. There's so many.
T'Pring is his fiance.
T'Pring
is the mother.
Vulcan
I know.
females have. Why does it always start T something?
It's actually a family trait. So everybody that's in that family line begins their names with T. In other Vulcan family lines, it could begin with M or whatever, some other letter.
Okay.
But that's typical for Vulcan. So everything has to start out with T something. Yeah, it gets kind of confusing. Like, wait a minute.
And it does, and that's why I've written it down because I knew that stuff would happen. Yeah. Right. T'Pring's his fiance.
T'Pring is the mother.
Is the mother-in-law.
Mother-in-law, correct.
T'Pring's mother. So, she doesn't like humans. The mother-in-law. She doesn't like Spock because he's like half and half. So they basically have to go through this ceremony to make sure it passes. Because if it doesn't get passed, then they can't get married. Right. Essentially, it has to go ahead. 100% has to go ahead. Amanda's going to teach Spock how to lie. There's only one thing for it. And I'm thinking, oh dear, we're in for a ride, buckle up. It's because Spock doesn't know how to do it. I mean, Vulcans can't actually naturally lie. It's kind of interesting because even though he kind of fails at lying, later on, he doesn't really lie as such later on in TOS, but he bends the truth. And that's partly down to being half human and probably learning from episodes like this, incidents like this, Well,
even in TOS, Spock Bones used to catch Spock out sometimes. It says, "So you lied," and he does the eyebrow thing like that, right? And he goes like he says it was just a fabrication.
Fabrication.
Like
bending the truth's allowed. It's fine. It's a white lie. It doesn't count.
Or he'd come up with some other reason. I simply stated logically that the blah, 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 blah. And you see Bones' top of his head blow off when stuff like that happens. Like, what are you talking about?
And Benga's going to give him fake hair so he fits in. His hair's a bit different as well. It's kind of a bit more messed up. But Benga's going to give him fake ears. Now, I write down here, any money, ironic that the fake ears are probably the ears Ethan Penn puts on. And they've just handed them, I was like, that's just ironic as hell, man.
Yeah.
Which I found amusing. So
and he looks at him too. He picks him up, starts going like,
looks at him,
what the hell is this?
And the thing is, it's nice to Spock, Leonard Nimoy's Spock has had this on at least one occasion, more probably, where he got to be an emotional person. And not always human, but like emotional. For whatever reason, something's happened, infected him or whatever, he could be emotional. And it's nice to see because I'm not saying you're a bad actor if you're acting like a Vulcan all the time, because that takes some kind of conditioning and discipline. But it gets a bit mundane and bored after a while. So it is interesting that he's allowed to actually flex his muscles a lot more in this. I was a big fan of that. Because I like Ethan Peck. I think he plays a great Spock, I really do. So fake ears for Spock. He's going to learn to lie. They then have to practice the ceremony, which includes the ceremonial tea pot and pouring of the tea and that kind of thing. And this was this is amusing because Amanda's like, go and pick up the pot of tea, and going, it's really hot though. And he's like, he puts his hand on it briefly. Scalded. Well, what's going on? Like, well, I can't pick this up. And she goes, you have to pick it up. And she picks it up. Like, I'm amazed. This character's fascinating, Amanda. She picks up the pot of tea, pours the tea, and he's like, "How can you do it?" She's like, "I've conditioned myself, like, because apparently they can just turn off pain receptors because pain's an emotion." Like, what?
Well, it's kind of like she was saying. She says, you live on Vulcan long enough, you got to learn how to do some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
she's probably still in
made
pain.
sense.
She just hides it. She's probably
Right,
still in pain.
exactly.
So yeah, it was amusing to see this, all the little things that go on. The crew, here we go. This is the bit that had me lolling the hardest, and it was saw it in the teaser trailer for the season, and that was the crew trying to teach him how to speak like a Vulcan.
Vulcan.
And they're saying all random things, aren't they, Gray? But
they're all imitating him. They all got his different way of imitating him. Talk. You have to keep still and talk, and don't move your head very much, and only. And then what was it? Ortega says, and move your eyebrow like this,
and nothing
but don't
else.
move the rest of your face.
I think it's what's her face? Number one that says she talks the most like him, like very kind of deep, and he's like, I don't sound like that, and they all like, yeah, you really do, like.
Oh yeah. He said, "Do I really sound like that?" And all four of them in unison going, "Yeah, well, yeah." And he's like,
I slightly skipped ahead because I think they're trying to practice the mind meld after the tea ceremony, and it's Pike, number one, Spock's mother, Amanda, and Spock himself. And Spock's trying to put his hand on her head to like pretend he can't do a mind meld now because he's human, but he's trying to pretend.
Right.
And he puts the hand on, and he's overthinking it, like anyone would do in that situation. If you and I were to try and do this, in real life, and he's making weird expressions, and like they're saying, no, like just actually pretend there's a memory in there, focus on that, and then he pulls a weird kind of weird face, and number one's just like, you look constipated now, and he just loses his shit again. He looked constipated, man.
I like it when the couple times when he kept on trying to do the mind meld, and one time he's just like yelling it like, "My mind to your mind." You're like, what are you yelling about?
Stop shouting, Spock, man! Christ. Oh, hey, it was amusing.
And then what was the thing? There was the one scene with the. I think it was a mother, and she was saying, "There's no way we're gonna pull this off." I said, "She's gonna see right through it." I mean, your friends do, and there was like Pike. And I forget who was next to Pike, and they're all just going like,
number one. It was Pike number one,
and they're both going like this, going like, no
chance. Too funny. Surprise, as I said before, and it was confirmed. Chapel can't fix Spock. I knew they wouldn't. I mean, you've got to try your friend, whatever. But so Plan B, they're going to try and make contact with the aliens again. Now, I know they had to do this for the plot and the story, Gray. But they gave up a bit too easily first time around when they were trying to speak to the aliens. They really were, the Kirchhoffs.
It's only an hour-long show.
I know. And not even that. No, it is actually because it's streaming. It was usually an hour long. And I'm thinking to myself, like, you gave up too easily first time around. I would have just tried a bit harder first time. But they're going to have to speak to aliens in person, like to get answers, which I know would be the case. And then you mentioned here, Gray does mention the alien cut-off calling card doesn't work anymore. It ceased to work. Yeah, they only got one go with that, because remember they tried again straight after with Uhura.
Right,
and
it wouldn't work.
It fried or whatever, it just doesn't work. So no calling card. What can you do? More of the family, more of the fiancé family beam on board. This time it's Spock's fiancée herself to Prime. Stunning actress. You mentioned here her name, Gaia Sanju.
I think it's either Gaia or Gia Sanju. Yeah, I'm not sure.
She plays that role fantastic. She plays a better Vulcan, I think, than Ethan Peck. And I'm not taking anything away from Ethan Peck. She is so deadpan. Ideal. It's a talent.
But she plays the perfect female Vulcan, because we've never seen a lot of female Vulcans. I mean, let's face it.
You're right. T'Pol, if you watch more Bloody Enterprise.
Right. You do TOS and you got to see T'Pol and the older lady. But generally speaking, you don't get to see a lot of that. So it's nice to see more of, Vulcan female, and to learn more about them or whatever. And that was just came along with the 6th season, a more male dominated,
Well, maybe that's accurate.
Entertainment world.
Maybe they're more deadpan than the male equivalent.
Could be.
Yeah.
But but like we had mentioned, she's Vulcan, but she's acting like the typical mother-in-law.
Yeah. Oh
It didn't
man.
matter. It didn't matter that she was Vulcan. She's still acting like the mother-in-law. That was funny. That was like really funny.
And we get to the mother-in-law in a minute. She's a real piece of work. So yeah, T'Pring beams aboard, and he's trying to pretend everything's fine. Spock, he doesn't tell her what's going on. He's like, "It's nice to see you," and he's going to rattle off the usual greetings when they see each other again. And she's like, "Stop, Spock! I've had hours of this with my mother and preparing." She doesn't like her mother that much either. And
Right.
I can feel Spock inside just going, "Oh, thank God for that!" Like I had to like rattle off all this ceremonial speech and welcome stuff, and whew, I'm let off the hook.
Yeah.
They're walking. They're walking along the corridor, and what is it? T'Pring makes a kind of comment, something about yeah, it's as good as eating a child or something random like that, and Spock just goes. And then he starts kind of sneezing and coughing. Like, oh, sorry, yeah. I think I'll go back to sick bay. I had a chuckle at that, mate. It's like trying to keep a joke in, and you know you're not allowed to laugh because it's inappropriate.
Right.
Oh,
It's kind of like I'm working on trying to get over that.
I can't remember the exact line. It was something to do with like
Yeah.
Eating the equivalent of eating a child, and he just has a little chuckle at it. So
Yeah, something goofy.
That was amusing. Then, oh god, here we go. Then the piece of work, T'Pring's mother, T'Prill, God, gets confusing. This is why I wrote it down. Gets confusion. So many T's.
Yeah.
Beams aboard along with her husband, and she's a piece of work. She is again more deadpan, the female Vulcan deadpan kind of type. And I note down here, she's basically your typical mother-in-law.
And in that marriage, you can tell that the expression is she wears the pants in the family.
Oh yeah.
Because all she has to do is give a stare at the husband, and the husband goes, "Oh, you're right. Yeah, you're right."
Oh, you're 110% right. Great. She definitely wears the trousers in the household. No doubt about it. She is the boss. And he is definitely most not. He's funny. We'll get to it in a moment. The father-in-law is pretty amusing.
Oh no, he's great. He's like he's like the second banana. There was I don't think we wrote it in the notes, but there was a scene where a Pike comes over and he had spent like all day learning how to cook Vulcan stuff. And so he brings the food over, and the father-in-law takes it, and he's going like, "Ooh, this is delicious." And then the mother just completely blasts the meal, saying like, "It's not that good because." And he
the
goes,
curls are too pronounced, and
yeah, the curl is too much. It shouldn't be so curly. But then the father-in-law goes, "Oh yes, yeah, you're right," and hands the food back. I'm like, "Oh boy," like poor guy.
We didn't note that down. That is a very good point. I'm glad you brought it up, Gray. I guess partly because I forgot, and partly because, in all seriousness, if we wrote down every single thing that happened in this episode, we would be spending a long time. We'd be plagiarising, basically, essentially. But it is a good point to bring that up, Gray, because it was amusing that, and that's what the father-in-law's like, and he's like this 2 or 3 times throughout the episode. To be fair, Gray notes here: the mum and dad are brilliant. The actors that play them do a great job portraying them beautifully, because
especially the actress that plays the mother-in-law. By the time she starts spouting off all her stuff, all you want to do is punch her in the head or something.
Oh yeah. But she gets
like,
ripped a new one later on.
Revenge
is had. But yeah, so, and also note here as well, the father is your typical father-in-law as well, under the thumb and whatnot. Uhura, Chapel, and Ortega walk into a bar. No, I'm only joking. It's not a joke.
They've done that too.
they did many times, actually, drinking real booze, but it looks of it. They basically go to that transport tunnel. They try to get through the normal way. They can't. Ortega's concerned that if they try and go through, they'll literally be ripped apart, but they want to help their friends, so they risk it for a biscuit, and they do. They basically have to nudge their way in. The idea being that if they can nudge themselves through the door a little bit, there's nothing on the other side they can go all the way through. But they have to do it in such a way that they don't get ripped apart. So I think Ortega goes up at a certain angle, flies through, everything's great, and then it kind of, she says just before she puts the old accelerator on, and this is what you see. You don't get this in. I don't know if you get this in TOS. You'll be able to tell me, Gray. I can't recall. Certainly from TNG onwards, the accelerator, because remember Tom Paris brings that back because he misses the tactile stuff.
You do get some of that in TOS because back then they wanted to make sure things. Look, there's a lot of buttons in TOS, right?
Yeah.
And you know that now in Strange New Worlds, everything is touch panel. But back then they didn't have touch panels. So everything is beep beep boop boop. Right?
How does it go again, Gray?
Beep boop. So yeah, so you see Ortega with the throttle, right? Just like in a car or whatever that ring.
And what did she say? What did she say that pissed me off? At least I don't know about you.
I forgot exactly what she said. That she
Hold on to your butts.
Hold on to your butts. That's it. Yeah, sorry.
Who says
But it was
that in
so funny
Star Trek?
because
Who says that in Star Trek?
well, she probably wanted to say something worse, but they're not going to let that go through. But look, we know she's the hot rod pilot. I mean, we all know this now. She's really good, and she's got a rep. I do think she gets away with her attitude more than other crew members.
Yeah, 100% she does.
But I guess she just kind of grows on
everything
you after a
about
while.
her, like her haircut and everything is like mad. It's like hot rod haircut equivalent. They call that a fade cut. I think, Gray. That's what the young team, all the young kids in that, they get that. It's like
she's a biker girl.
Eh? Say again?
She's a biker girl. Motorcycle biker girl.
Oh, okay. No,
you don't hear this stuff in Scotland, right?
Yeah. we're innocent. But yeah, so Ortega is a bit annoying. That comment, it was like they kind of got away with saying "hold on to your asses." I don't think that's too much of a problem, especially it's streaming.
Yeah.
Streaming doesn't have the same stipulations as broadcast TV does. Certainly in the UK, I'd imagine it's the same in the States as well. So yeah, they go through, and then next thing, fade to black. They wake up, and they wake up in that part we've seen from the teaser trailer for the season of that crystal-like environment. Everything's reflective around them. It's obviously just like an area that the aliens have created to make it habitable for the people that have come in, which is fine. It's fine.
I thought the funny part was when they were flying the shuttle in, and the next moment they're all going like, "Are we dead? Are we dead?"
Yeah.
And then everything's kind of like, "Whoa!" And I was sitting there going, "Oh my god, they're all on an acid trip. They're just like, they're all just going like."
That's coming next season, the acid trip episode that will happen.
Yeah, there you go. I was cracking up from that because it just looked like that. Everything was getting psychedelic with the lights and everything, and they're like, "Wow,
are we dead yet?" Yeah. So back on Enterprise, the ceremony begins. The proper ceremony begins, and the tea part of the ceremony begins as well. And Spock walks up to grab it. He grabs it. He kind of looking at Pike. Pike's looking at him. Pike's like, "Yeah, I've got you, man." And then he grabs onto the teapot. You can see him just go.
It's like
clenches, goes round, pours it, and you have to pour it at the right speed to not ruin the tea. And pours it perfectly. Takes it back, puts it down, and then he's like, "Ah!" and I mentioned it right. Gray mentioned something here. It would have been nice if Mbenga gave him. I mean, you could get it. It doesn't need Star Trek in the future. You get it now. Antiseptic cream or antiseptic to put on your hands and numb it up a little bit, yeah? Or numb it. He could have done that. The guy was burned. He was in pain, man. Gray's like, nah, it had to happen the way it happened. Did it?
Has to. Yeah, because he trained for this. They don't remember. Vulcans can see through a lot of things, so he didn't want to risk anything. So he just knew he had to just do it the right way.
Okay. We'll agree to disagree on that one. But he does pull it off because his mother-in-law says acceptable, which is probably the equivalent of anyone else saying, "Well done, son, good job." And then T'Pring grabs his hand, to like almost like she's happy that it went well, and he could just see him grimace in pain.
He goes winces for a second, like, "Oh God."
But you can't tell her yet. You still can't tell. She doesn't know yet. She still doesn't know. And we get to that later on. Uhura, Chapel, and Ortega, they still haven't made it into this bar yet. They make it through, and when they're talking, so we're talking to the aliens, the Kirchhoffs, they encounter a different alien this time. We talked about that briefly earlier in the episode, called Blue.
Why not?
I'm liking my boy Blue. Or gal, we don't know. I put he, him, there. I don't have a clue what sex this was. It was too difficult to make out.
I
But
think yellow sounded definitely female. Blue could have
could have
gone
been
either
male.
way.
Yeah,
So you
could have
don't
been
know.
male.
Yeah.
We'll say they, them then. Let's be politically correct, I guess. And I'm thinking, where the hell's Yellow? Where's my boy Yellow? But Blue's not as accommodating. Not that Yellow was. Not very helpful at all. They can't do anything about this at all, so they feel a bit
Well,
deflated.
well, wait, to
Initially,
go back on it. To go back on it for a second, which I thought was hilarious, is Blue states, because they were saying what they felt was wrong and needed to be corrected, and Spock and stuff, they needed help. And they go like, complaints outside the normal time is not acceptable.
yeah, it's not a bloody contract you've signed. Like, what are you talking about?
And I thought that was great. I'm sitting there going like, it's like when you're back in school or something like that. You're the time for you to complain was before, not now.
But
And
they
they
never stated that though. So they never told them the terms and conditions of what.
No,
they
of course,
done to them. This
of
is the
course,
thing.
of course. But it just came out so funny because they're just going like, "Didn't you know that? You cannot. This has never happened before. You don't complain outside the parameters of when you were supposed to complain." Like, okay,
No one told us the terms and conditions, man. We don't know the rules. Right. But yeah, that was it. That was slightly amusing. Back on board. This is things get a little bit heated, a little bit. To be fair, at the ritual, T'Pring is ripping her daughter a new one, actually. Like, saying she's disappointed her and stuff. Just not nice stuff whatsoever.
Yeah.
Spock's getting ripped as well. He's not immune. He's getting it tight as well. She clearly doesn't like Spock at all. And you can see Spock trying his best not to explode with anger. Like the grimace in his face. And I'm thinking, she's not saying anything about the grimacing in his face. So, I thought she'd be that anal about it. Are you okay? Oh, yeah, I've got the spasms still on my face,
Yeah, right.
Still injured. But this was the cool bit, Gray. What happened after he says he needs to go to the loo?
Right.
And then he goes to the loo and literally screams into a till and goes, and that's the bit where you saw him like punching and kicking outside.
Yeah, he's like punching, like he's like really mad or something. And then he screams into the towel. Now we understand where that scene came from.
And what did we say?
So,
when that
so
happened,
now it makes total sense. When we saw it originally, we were going like, wait a minute, that sounds like
better
too
have
much.
a good reason for this, So
exactly, and they did. They did.
It was amusing to see. It's amusing to see. And he gets the communicator out. He's like, Benga, have you found the cure yet? No, I haven't. Nurse Chapel's away off to find aliens to try and get you help this way. And he could see the concern in his face. He's like, oh, what? Why? Like, oh, Christ.
Yeah, like, what'd she do? She went back there? Like, oh, my God. This day just keeps getting worse.
It does. Gray, you had a little note on the quality of the writing at this stage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just, and this is part of the reason why I liked the episode too much. So much. I thought that the writing from top to bottom, backwards and forwards, was excellent. Everything was done properly. There was great humor. The timing for all the comedic stuff that happened was totally perfect. And in any kind of an episode, especially something like this, where you have to put in this type of humor and still seems sort of serious sometimes.
Yeah.
To get the timing down for the comedy is very difficult to pull off. And these people had the timing down perfect. Obviously, they probably did a bunch of takes to get it right. But the point is that it was perfect, spot on. Everything was just coming off the way it was supposed to. And that's what made the episode so much better, because you don't even notice time flying when you're watching the episode, and you're just cracking up at the stuff. And even more so now that we've already seen the episode, I can actually go back and laugh even more now at stuff that I'm just starting to realize was funny. At the time, I thought it was funny, but I didn't really get it. And I'm looking back going, you know what? That was pretty funny too. So it was like really, really, really well done. And there was a few episodes in TOS that were done that way, like Piece of the Action. If you've never seen Piece of the Action, Trev, you might not have seen that. Go watch that on TOS. That is so good and it's so funny. They go to a planet that's run by 1930s, 40s mobsters, and Kirk and Spock and McCoy have to fit in, and so they have to talk like the gangsters, right? and you see Spock trying to talk like the gangsters, and he does a great impression of Spock trying to talk like the gangsters. Yeah, that's right. And you hear Spock say talking like that. And then that one episode became very famous for the card game that Kirk made up, because they knew they were going to get killed at that point in the episode. So he thought on his feet really quick, and he noticed that they were playing, poker or whatever. And he says, "Oh, that game's child's play." And he says, "What? You think you got a better game than this?" And they're going like, "Yeah, we got a better game than that." And they're going like, "What's it called?" And he goes, "Do you ever play Fizbin?" And they're all going, "What's Fizbin?" "Oh, let me show you." And he goes into to the rules of the game, Kirk.
Rings a bell.
And it's so good. I don't want to say any more, but if anybody out there, go watch Piece of the Action. And
We'll add that into the
you should
notes
go watch
after.
it.
We'll add that into
Yeah,
the notes.
it is really, it's one of the funniest
Piece of the
episodes.
mind, did you say, Gray?
Piece of the Action.
Piece of the action. Sorry, piece of action. Okay. Hey, that sounds right. Sounds like Monster talk to me. And you're right, Greg.
Yep.
You know what they say about what the secret to humor is?
No, go ahead. I'm sure I've heard it.
Timing.
Exactly.
Get it? Sorry.
Get it. Got it.
You got
Good.
to talk for like 30 seconds or so.
Yeah.
And it is true. Timing is Gray's point before is you've got to hit it. That is genuinely the key to humor. Anyone can tell a joke if apart from me. You can tell a joke if you do the timing right. There used to be a very famous. He's still with us actually. I don't say used to. Some people have heard of this guy because he has lived and toured a lot in America, and he's called Billy Connolly. Famous Scottish comedian, and he's been in some movies like Mrs. Brown, one or two others that fail my head. But he's a very funny man, and he doesn't really tell jokes, but he tells stories, and it's about the timing. If he times it perfectly, I've been in tears watching this guy. I've had a friend watch this guy live. I watched him live as well. My friend was in so much hilarity watching him. He was actually starting to turn blue and purple because he couldn't get enough breath in. I generally thought I was going to have to call an ambulance. I can't do what he does. I can do his jokes or his funny stories, but I can't get the timing because it's an art.
Right,
But anyway,
right.
so sorry,
yeah.
diversion a little bit there. So guess who's back? Do not
Yellow.
back again. Yellow's back, or gal Yellow.
I was waiting for other colors to show up, but all we got was yellow and blue.
It's just
I was
it's a
thinking
very
we get
dull
purple
species.
and
What can we say, man? I was looking. I was hoping for polka dots, magenta. Like kind of beige.
chartreuse.
I wanted to see beige, but
Yeah, no,
I wanted to see grey. Where was grey?
Yeah, oh yeah, I was there,
different
but
spelling. The original spelling. No, the
Yeah,
correct
right.
spelling, not your spelling.
my spelling.
Yeah, so Grey's back. Next episode, Yellow's back, and she's asking what the relationship with Spock is, and she's just basically, my friend. Kind of duh, but I knew this was going to happen. Uhura and Ortega just clock each other, and they're like, "Yeah, right. No chance. They're just pals. No way." And poor Yellow's confused to the friend comment because, and I didn't see this. Blink, can you move? It did actually happen. If I think about it, go back to the start, it did happen. Blink, can you miss it? She's confused because she says, last minute before the shuttle crashed, your friend, Spock, transferred the shields or beefed up the shields in your area so that you were safe, and that's why he get taken out the way he did. I mean, I think he potentially died there, and they brought him back and they repaired him, mate. Or he was at least seriously injured, if not actually dead, and they've done what they've done to him, And
Right.
and then they show it flashback, and he is. And then if you remember at the start when he was in the shuttle, I do recall him actually looking over to her and moving things, pressing things. That's what he was doing. And I was like, okay. This is when he's still Spock. Vulcan Spock, not human Spock, which was interesting. So, yeah, they noticed this and they're like, well, what are you talking about? Like, why would this happen then if they're just friends? And it seems to be, they're kind of skirting around the issue too much, I think, Chapel and Uhura and Ortega, because they don't come out and ask in plain English at the start what they want from the aliens. They skirt around it. What I mean by that, Gray, is they're not saying he has two sets of DNA in him and you have made him whole one as human. You've not put them back together like this. They keep skirting around it. Oh, he's not the same. He's broken. Why didn't you just say that he was two DNAs and he's now one? And they would have went, okay, we'll fix that. Storytelling. What do I know about these things? So
It was the setup, so they had to just.
yeah, no, true. Sometimes you have to bend these things a little bit to make them make sense. But yeah, so Chapel, she should have explained what she really wanted at the start, but she's emotional as well about what's happening to her friend, stroke lover, stroke don't know what's happening kind of thing. And Grey notes here, it was a nice, touching, emotional scene as Chapel let her guard down, didn't she, essentially? And you see her upset, and it just...
And once she was upset and once she was starting to cry, then Yellow was picking up on, now I get it. I understand.
Yeah,
you know.
No one understands human emotions. Not even humans understand human emotions sometimes, so it kind of makes sense. But yeah, no, she's really emotional. She kind of realizes more so by talking about it what her feelings really are for Spock and what's going on. So I don't think she fully understands what was going on. Either does Spock, to be fair.
Right.
So the Kerkhoffs, not the Kirkhoffs. That's another species. The Kerkhoffs. What a weird name for a species, man.
One of those.
Right, what I thought they were going to do is when Spock was in the ceremony or towards the end of it, because he managed to complete the ceremony without anything, I thought, because they're advanced species, I thought they were not going to quite do a Q snap. I thought they were going to do something close to that where they can fix him where he is there and then, and all of a sudden he goes from nervous human to deadpan Vulcan. I thought it'd be like that, great. I didn't think it would be Chapel turning up at the door with a hypo spray. I didn't see that coming. Maybe you did.
No, I didn't know what was going to happen, to be honest. But the thing that was interesting, though, is when she appeared at the door and she's going like, Spock, and then Spock goes, oh, my vitamins.
yeah. Thinking on your feet,
it's part of my treatment for when I was hurt. Like, oh, okay.
I'm like, thinking on your feet, Spock. That is impressive. Yeah. You need, just after your ceremony, you need your vitamins. Yeah, you definitely need your vitamins. Okay, right. Yeah. So yeah, he gets the injection and then he's back to normal. So it seems.
Well, not completely. He's
not quite.
Partially back to normal.
No, like emotionally he is. The things with the ears and stuff, that'll take a bit longer to fix. Right. They do state that, which is fine. So he visually doesn't look himself, but I think he feels more of himself. A little interesting scene where Pike is trying to distract him before this all happens, with the injection and whatnot.
He's trying to buy time.
Trying to buy time. He's like, anyone like some more food? The father-in-law's like, ooh, And then what does the mother-in-law looks? The
mother-in-law looks at him like with the eyes, and he just goes, maybe later.
The way to a man's heart is through his stomach, so to say.
But then the whole tactic of Pike trying to come up with the delays, going like, well, we have this ritual,
Charades.
this ritual on Earth. Like, what ritual? And then he goes, charades. And I was cracking up. I'm going like, oh my god, charades is a ritual.
And the father-in-law's trying to play along.
The father-in-law was into it though. The father was funny though. He was into it. Really? How do you? What are the rules?
Well done, Pike. He plays a good wingman or a good pal in this episode, Pike. I thought, so
he's a great actor. That's why good actors can do stuff like that.
They can. So everything seems more back to normal. However, I love this bit. It's probably my favourite bit of the whole episode. Spock then comes clean and rips T'Pring, the mother-in-law, a new one, admitting that he was throughout that whole ceremony human, and then he takes off the fake ears, and there's like shock horror.
Well, let's remember too that just prior to that, she goes into a little tirade of talking about. She doesn't say it directly, although she does a little bit, and she's basically just berating humans.
Oh, in general,
flat out, and T'Pring, T'Pring at least tells her, you don't really have anything to say. The ceremony's over. So she was putting her mother down for like, you don't need to be saying all this. I mean, come on, stuff. And then that's when Spock started flipping out because he knew, and not only was he half human, but he also knew that his mother and what she had gone through and stuff like that. And so then he let her have it, like you were saying, and pulls the ears off and. And T'Pring, I thought T'Pring was going to have a heart attack at that point.
He does give her both barrels, doesn't he? But he does it in a controlled, Spock, Vulcan way, which is even harder to do, I like that bit there. He gets his point across in a way that a Vulcan can do without being angry and antagonizing
Right.
all that. So it was
And
kind of cool.
and he basically told her, he says, I don't reject my human half. My human half is something to be proud of.
And
You
a
know, and
shout out
stuff.
to his mum as well. He basically kind of
Yeah.
thanks her for always looking out for him and being there. And
And I really like that episode because even I was getting pretty emotional because it's when you're a father, as I am, or a mother, and you're talking about your children, that's the way
wait,
you
you're a
get.
father and a mother.
Well, not at the same time, yeah. But the whole thing was just great, and what do you call it? Amanda was getting all choked up and crying because her son was coming to her rescue, and rightfully so,
Yeah, yeah,
and stuff. And that came from a memory when they melded and stuff.
yeah.
So
Because
it
she was getting
really,
comments against her, Amanda, wasn't she? And that's where like I would you stick up for your parents. I would stick up for my mum. And
Yeah.
you don't say that. Like Spock basically, and that's when he kind of started going in his rant, because you don't say that about my mother, blah blah. She's been through a lot and whatnot.
And you know what they should have done before all that? Spock should have come out and said, "Look, no moms. No mom,
Yeah, no
moms
moms are allowed.
no moms in the
Yeah,
argument.
yeah, yeah.
Can't do that.
Leave the parents outside, man. There's no need.
Leave
for
it
that.
out. Leave it out. I warn you."
And I don't. I'll get to this in a moment, but there is a nice scene between those two. So, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending how you look at it, T'Pring was not happy that she didn't know about Spock's condition. Everyone else seemed to know apart from her, which is true. Like, come up front and be honest with her. But he tries to say, listen, if I told you, you would have been forced to lie, and it's really difficult, obviously, for Vulcans to lie. I didn't want you to be in that position. I thought that was a good analogy. I thought it was a good excuse. But I do see her point as well. You lied to me. We're supposed to be getting married. She's like, basically, I think we should take a break now because I don't appreciate being, and been left in the dark. And I'm like, oh, they're not going to get married. Okay, right, yes. That opens it up for Chapel. So is this bit true to canon grade? Like, did they ever get married in the TOS?
Yeah.
Eventually.
If it stays true to canon, the only thing that's a little disappointing is that you probably won't see T'Pring again. That's going to be it. In TOS, when they did Amok Time, Spock commented that he hadn't seen his fiance, wife, or whatever, for God knows how many years. It was a long, long time.
Oh wow!
So this was the beginning of the break or the split, etc.
So they don't get married in the TOS, or they do?
Well, they're in TOS. They're already married. So because he says T'Pring is my wife. So you don't know when they actually got married.
Yeah.
But it obviously was later. So we still might see T'Pring, and we could see a Vulcan wedding too, which would really be cool. I mean, I'm hoping to see that if and when that does happen. But the starting of the problems, if you want to put it that way, between them happened right there. So we see that that's going to eventually lead to what happens in Amok Time, and then they really do separate.
Cool. Yeah, as long as they don't screw canon, that's all I ask for. To be fair.
Yeah. It's nice because basically, because of Strange New Worlds being what it is, being before Kirk's Enterprise, we're now getting the backstory in certain episodes that we never knew before.
Which is what makes this cool.
It does, because there's a lot of things, especially when it comes to Spock and T'Pring and everything that you Spike Jones. No, when you saw the original episode, you wanted to know, well, wait a minute, it's his wife. How did that all come about? When did that happen? Yeah. And now because of Strange New Worlds, we're actually able to see it, which is really great. I like all that.
In Strange New Worlds, they do have a cool sandbox to play with, but it has got its limitations. They can do certain things in a sandbox that other shows couldn't do. They just have to be careful not to step over things, but they've got these opportunities to play with. So as long as they play with them wisely, great. I love this backstory. I want to hear backstory. Right. Unfortunately, Chapel doesn't get the fellowship that she wanted. But then she kind of turns around and goes, I was in another, I don't know what she says, like in another galaxy or another dimension or something. She says, she's like, I've literally traveled to another dimension today and trying to save my friend.
And she said it, and I talked to a highly advanced civilization.
What have you done lately? Hold my
blah blah blah. Exactly, and you can see, because Vulcans are always curious, right? So you can see they're going like, oh, what happened? And she just goes like, "Man, you read about it in my paper when I publish it next month." Click, and hangs up on him.
Yeah, she's like, I'm too good for yous. You can read about it in my white paper later on. And he's like,
yeah, bam.
Bye.
It was
a
great.
good
I
scene.
like this.
That
Yeah,
was
yeah.
sweet. And then to finish it off, we get a really sweet scene between Spock and his mother, how he's basically saying she's proud and you had to go through all these things you did, and we're talking about why she chose the memory she did of taking Spock to school, and it was because she said it was the first time you were then accepted by your fellow Vulcans. And he's like, but why? The mothers were saying this about you and that about you, and she's like, I don't care. You're my boy, and you were okay. You were accepted. You were happy, and that's all that
Right.
mattered. And I was
You
like, that's
you give up
nice.
everything for your kids.
That's
That's
nice.
basically what it comes down to. And
Yeah,
I think he kind of knew that, but never really realized it until
it was,
he saw the memory, and
and
it all
being
just
human
started
as well
clicking.
for the episode helps, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. For sure.
Because you still remember that. He'll remember that. He'll remember what these things are. And I think this is what helps him control his emotions later on. I think I said this at the start of the episode. Going forwards, that's what makes him, when it comes to TOS, he is more in balance with his two sides. Not perfect, certainly not. He
Sure.
doesn't get perfect until he's an old man, where he's got it nailed. He can still crack little jokes and smile and smirk, but be deadpan when he wants to be. That was the alpha Spock, the Groot Spock.
Right. Groot Spock.
So,
Oh man,
alpha Groot, alpha Spock.
I could just see that the Groot Spock. There's a tree with pointed ears.
That's a good idea, man. If you're watching Paramount and Disney, right?
Oh my god.
So it was a lovely, lovely scene, and Gray just hit the nail on the head. He said before, very emotional, wonderful, understanding what parents go through, parents understanding what children go through, and then Spock and Chapel finally have their bloody kiss when they're trying to talk about their emotions. She lands one in him, doesn't she? I wasn't sure if he was going to do it to her, because
Yeah,
he's
he definitely
Vulcan.
wasn't going to. Right.
No,
He
not
cares
fully.
about her, but he wasn't going to just go and kiss her. But she decides to break the ice and kisses him. But I thought the line that because I was sitting there watching the kiss, and it was a fairly emotional kiss. I mean, Spock wasn't like getting into it as much as a human would, but he was. And then the funniest thing is when she was done kissing him, he goes, "What's happening?" And she goes, "I don't know. Shut up."
Yeah.
And it pushes him out of the frame of the video, so you knew they were gonna try to do some hanky panky. But that was great.
So there you go.
Yeah.
I get we
Yeah.
won't get to see if his ears get pointier or not. We just don't know.
Yeah. It's true. Yeah.
So
Could just kind of move around a little bit and go. You never know.
so Mr. Gray, what did you give this out of 10 and why?
I went 9 out of 10. I had to, because it was just such a good episode. I mean, it was tight, cohesive, funny. Timing was great, and that is a big credit to the director. Sorry I don't have the director's name, but it's very difficult. People think comedy is easy because it sounds like it's easy because it's funny. Comedy is actually very hard to do, a lot harder than some types of acting. So, and a director has to get the timing out of his people. He may have to do one take or 2,000 takes, but he's got to get the timing, and that could be hell on a director.
Yeah.
So the director definitely gets a lot of kudos for that.
The director is called Jordan Canning, or Canning. I think it's
Okay.
Canning, actually. I've not heard of him, but it's not a bad thing. He's obviously done a good job.
Yeah.
Written by Catherine Lynn and Henry Alonso Myers. So credit to all those people there. Funny, I'll tell you my score in a little second, but funnily, next week's episode that we'll be talking about, we're reviewing, is Lost in Translation, which will be interesting. And I notice here, just briefly, episode 8 is called Under the Cloak of War. Oh, some Romulan action.
That's
yes.
got to be no. I got to think it's gonna be the Gorn.
Oh yeah, did they cloak? They don't cloak.
No, but there's that the Gorn is coming because we already saw that in a prior episode.
That did look like
So
Star
there's
Trek.
gonna have to be something.
See when you see the mothership in the trailer we saw come in, it looked like something from Independence Day where the ship comes in really quick and it just there's disturbances in the atmosphere and the clouds. I was like, this isn't like Star Trek. This looks like an Independence Day type episode or movie. I can't wait for that, to be honest with you. Sorry, digressing. I was 8 out of 10, but I bumped it up slightly. Sometimes when you read back your comments and your notes and then you read back yours, Gray, and you've got a chance to digest it, it changes a little bit.
Sure.
So it went from an 8 to 8.5.
Well, and I think I'll change mine to a 9.2.
No,
I'm
you
kidding.
won't. 0.5s is as good as we're allowing at 0.5s. I thought this was much better than 2 episodes ago. It's getting a lot better now. Very funny, very cultural. I like learning about Vulcan culture and culture in general in Star Trek. Very sweet and emotional as well. Very well written and directed. The reason I don't give it a 9 out of 10, it takes a lot to impress me. I've only ever given one of our episodes. In fact, no, I gave Picard episode 9 a 10, and I gave the finale a 9. And I think I might have given the same Deep Space 9 episode on Lower Decks. I think I gave that a 10 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, that was a 10 because that was
times I've done
great.
it. It's very hard to do. So
has to be for me a 9 out of 10 is or even the 8.5 is an exceptional score. 10 only comes if it's something that's really unique, different, something that just catches you. It has to be, if it has a couple of those qualities, then you can go for a 10. Otherwise, it's always going to be a 9, which is great. You know.
9 is kind of like the unofficial 10. Like, that means it's bloody excellent.
Yeah.
That means it's really, really good. But it's so hard to get to 10 because everything has to be perfect. Literally nothing has to be bad for it to be 10, which is just the way it should be. So, yeah, no, really, really enjoyed that episode. I'm looking forward to next week, of course, where hopefully we have that one shit episode that every season's allowed, and that's it. But yeah, we'll wrap it up from there. It's been slightly longer than usual, but there was a lot to talk about because it's a good episode. When there's shit episodes, we don't usually talk as long.
And it was plenty of funny stuff, so we had to just, you know.
Exactly. So yeah, thank you for joining us, Gray. We will be back next week at some point.
Especially Spock Root. Now that was, you know, that's classic.
He's got this idea in his head now.
So instead of going, I am Groot, he's going, I am Spock.
You know, stranger things have happened. But yeah, no, thank you, mate, for coming along, and thank you to all for watching. We'll see you next week. But until then, Mr. Gray, do your thing, mate.
Live long and prosper, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.